walk everybody through your knowledge of how Troy Tulowitzki finally became had knowledge of his departure from Colorado.
Well, I think we should probably start about 7 months ago when these discussions first took place. I think this was right around the time that the Toronto Blue Jays went out and got Josh Donaldson. And, they wanted to add offense, and Troy Tulowitzki is the best offensive shortstop, not just right now, but if you look at his numbers, even being in Colorado, one of the best offensive shortstops in history when he's healthy. And the discussions went nowhere then, and they went nowhere when they were revisited in April, and they went nowhere when they were revisited in June. But finally we got to July, and the Blue Jays agreed to throw in Jeff Hoffman, who was a kid who was potentially the number one pick in the draft last year before he needed Tommy John surgery. He's back right now, and he's thrown about 98 or 99. And when you take him and Miguel Castro, who they got also, who throws really hard and is a big kid, and a third power arm in there, and the fact that they would take back the contract of Jose Reyes, which is pretty pricey for the lack of production you have with him. All of a sudden, the trade came together very quickly, so quickly that Troy Tulowitzki found out he was traded when Walt Weiss, his manager for the Rockies, told him when he got back to the bench after making it out in the ninth inning.
Huh. So Weiss comes up to him in the dugout in Wrigley Field and says, "I got a call. You're out of the game?"
Yeah, he says we got to take you out, man. I mean, Walt Weiss, according to people who saw this and who have knowledge of it, had tears in his eyes when he was telling him that they traded.
So how is this all going down in Colorado that this happened this way, Jeff?
Here's the complicated part of it. Troy Tulowitzki's been the face of that franchise for about a decade now. Todd Helton was towards sort of the end of his glory years when Tulowitzki came up, and Tulowitzki took over. And, when he's been healthy, he's been one of the best players in baseball, and he's done a good job of representing the franchise. But for a while now, there's just been this sense that the Rockies are not going in the right direction. And he's wanted out of there. But he's played good soldier. They said to him, if you go out publicly and say you want out, number one, you're going to look like a jackass because you're already making, $100+ million. You're going to look like you're greedy. And number two, you're going to make this franchise look like it's a joke. And so, you know what Troy Tulowitzki said? Okay, I will not say anything publicly, but if you do something, please have the courtesy to at least let me know about it and at least run it by me. And this is something that Dick Mofford, the Rockies owner, agreed to. They didn't do that with him. And that's where the anger from Troy Tulowitzki comes from right now. And it's not so much anger as it's a bit of betrayal. Now, this is business, Rich.
Yep.
And here's the thing. If Troy Tulowitzki wanted veto power, he could have gotten a no-trade clause. But no-trade clauses cost money. And if you want a no-trade clause, you're going to need to take $10 or $20 less million in order to get it. And so, ultimately, he trusted the wrong guy. And it came back, and it bit him. But the truth is, he's ending up in a much, much better place than the organization he was with for the 10 years of his career.
Well, and I've got Jeff Passan on the program here from Yahoo Sports joining me here. Jose Reyes would beg to differ with that characterization. And by that I mean this, that Reyes, there was an article, I forget where, that I read, which is a horrible way to begin a story, in the last 6 weeks. About
good anecdotal.
I know,
very nice.
I know, but the quote that I saw from Reyes, he said that he loved everything about Toronto except the turf.
Except the turf, yeah.
And
Troy Tulowitzki's not exactly a guy who's been notorious for staying healthy.
And that's what I mean, that Tulowitzki's going to a spot where half his season's now going to be on whatever turf they call it up there. So
yeah, but I think I've brought that up to people who know him, and their response was, it's really tough playing in Colorado too, in the high altitude. And I think he feels like at least it is an equivalent trade. I mean, look, ultimately, if Troy Tulowitzki were to have been able to pick his destination, he would have gone and played for the New York Yankees. I mean, he idolizes Derek Jeter. He thinks that the Yankees are guys, and he would have loved to go and play for the Los Angeles Dodgers too. And both of those seemingly would have been fit because the Dodgers, even though they have Corey Seager at AAA, he could always move over to third base, and they need someone on the left side of the infield like Tulowitzki, especially a right-handed bat. And the Yankees are trotting out who every day at shortstop? Joe Schmo. I mean, it's not Derek Jeter. It's somebody who's not going to be there long term.
It's a man named Didi, sir. Pay respects to the Gregorius when given the opportunity.
Isn't it Sir Didi? I believe he's been knighted.
It is Sir Didi Gregorius. Yes, knighted by the people in the Bronx. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but then there's a lot of folks, Jeff, who believe that Tulowitzki might be flipped elsewhere, and same with Reyes. What do you think of the opportunity of that maybe materializing in the next 3 days?
I don't think Tulowitzki's going anywhere. I think he is there to stay, and they're elated that they got him. And I don't think you give up a guy the caliber of Jeff Hoffman or the guy the caliber of Castro in order to go and then try and get other types of pieces. I mean, that's some Trader Jack McKeon type stuff there, and that's I don't think that's Alex Anthopoulos' style. He just goes for the splash and just sits there like it's a giant cannonball, and he got everybody wet and has a big smile on his face because of it. Reyes, on the other hand, I could absolutely see him going. But if you're Colorado, why do you take a guy who is overpaid right now and whose value is near its all-time low and send him away from somewhere that is going to juice his offensive numbers? I mean, that's the advantage that the Rockies have. And you wonder if that's what Jeff Bridges, the new general manager, is going to do. Get offensive guys who have, middling profiles, let the thin air of Colorado do its thing, and flip them when their value's at its all-time highest in order to try and go get as much pitching as he possibly can because, Denver just runs through pitchers like a lawnmower.
Before I let you go, Jeff, I want to hit you real quick on some names that are rumored to be on the move over the next few days. What about Yasiel Puig? What can you tell me about his availability, potentially?
Look, Andrew Friedman will listen on anyone. If you gave Andrew Friedman a good enough offer, he would trade his first child. But I don't see it happening. I do not see it happening at all. And yeah, maybe they'll listen. But just because you listen on something doesn't mean you're at all going to be inclined to pull the trigger on it.
Mm-hmm. How about David Price?
I think he should be traded. I don't know at this point that he will be traded. The Tigers are shopping, to add. They're 3 games under 500. They're well back of the second wild card at this point, and not just back of the actual wild card itself, but behind a number of teams. I mean, threatening, if they lose their next couple games, to drop behind potentially 5 or 6 teams for that second wild card. I don't get why they would buy, and I think it's a mistake, but Dave Dombrowski's done this a lot longer than I have, and he's really good at it. So I can't quarrel with him too much at this point without knowing what the upshot is.
And what about Chapman? What about Aroldis Chapman in Cincinnati or any other Red that might be potentially available?
Yeah, again, I think it's one of those should go, but especially because I don't know if the Reds are going to be any good next year. And they not only do they lose Johnny Cueto, they're losing Mike Leake too, and they're going to trade him. And at this point, if 2016 looks like a rebuilding year, why do you need a closer when you can get so much for him? And the closer market's saturated with Kimbrel and with Papelbon going, and with Frankie Rodriguez likely to go, but Chapman's the best by far. And I think the Reds could get a great haul for him if they do go that route.
And last question, and when it's all said and done, where does Cole Hamels wind up, do you think?
I think Texas. And I think Texas because they just have the best group of prospects. And especially if the Phillies are willing to pay down some of Hamels' contract, they could go get Jorge Alfaro, who's, a big power-hitting catcher with a stupendous arm, and Nick Williams, who's a kid with like a 60-70 hit tool, meaning, a guy who translates into a 300 to 320 hitter when he's in the big leagues. They have the guys to go and get someone like Hamels, and they have the motivation and the rationale, too.
Jeff, I appreciate the call. Let's chat again soon.
Look forward to it, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. That's Jeff Passan of Yahoo Sports.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.